Imagine this. You wake up one morning and the world feels different. Not in a dramatic, apocalyptic way, no sirens, no chaos, but in something far more unsettling. The air is the same, the streets unchanged, yet everything seems hollow, as if the invisible glue holding meaning together has dissolved overnight. You go through your routine, coffee, commute, work, but each action feels weightless, like a pantomime. The ambitions that once drove you now seem absurd. The relationships you cherish now feel like fragile illusions. Even time itself stretches and warps, as though the future is just an endless repetition of the same empty days. And then the question rises, slow and inevitable. What if none of this matters? Not in a fleeting, melancholic way, but as a cold, unshakable truth. What if the career you're building, the love you're chasing, the legacy you hope to leave? What if all of it is just a story you've been telling yourself to avoid staring into the void? This is not depression. This is not laziness. This is something far more ancient, far more profound. This is the confrontation with the absurd, the moment when the human craving for meaning collides with the universe's silence, the great contradiction. Here's the paradox. You are a creature wired for purpose. Your brain evolved to seek patterns, to assign narratives, to believe that suffering has a reason and effort leads somewhere. And yet, the more you think, the more you realize that all meaning is assigned, not inherent. Love, success, morality, these are not laws of physics. They are fragile human inventions, trembling against the indifference of time. So what do you do when you see through the illusion? Do you crumble? Do you rage against the emptiness? Or is there another way? One that doesn't require delusion, but doesn't surrender to despair either? The weight of the unanswerable. This is not a modern problem. The ancient Stoics grappled with it. The existentialists made it their battleground. Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," and asked how we would endure the weight of a universe without inherent purpose. Camus wrote that the only serious philosophical question is whether to live or to die, and everything else is secondary. And yet, here you are in the 21st century, drowning in distractions but still haunted by the same void. You scroll, you consume, you chase dopamine hits, not because you're shallow, but because stopping means facing the question, if nothing matters, why go on? You've been taught that life must have a grand purpose, that you must be someone, do something, leave a mark. But what if that's the very lie that's suffocating you? What if the answer isn't in finding meaning, but in realizing you never needed one to begin with? The tension builds. This is where most turn away. They bury themselves in work, in religion, in pleasure, in pain, anything to avoid the abyss. But you're still here, still reading, still staring into the dark. That means something, not because the universe cares, but because you do. And that is the first clue. The next question is not, why is there no meaning? It's, what do I do now that I know there isn't? And the answer is not what you expect. The illusion of inherent meaning. You were born into a world that promised answers. From childhood, you were handed scripts. Study hard, find love, build a career, be happy. These weren't just suggestions. They were presented as the obvious path, the default setting for a meaningful life. But then came the cracks. Maybe it was the first time you achieved something you thought would fulfill you, only to feel nothing. Maybe it was watching people chase wealth, status, or even enlightenment with the same quiet desperation. Or maybe it was the slow, creeping realization that no matter how much you accumulate, how much you accomplish, the hunger never really goes away. This is the hidden problem. We are meaning-making machines trapped in a universe that doesn't care. The psychological trap. Carl Jung called it the shadow. The part of us that knows deep down that our carefully constructed identities are fragile. We bury this knowing because it's terrifying, but the more we ignore it, the louder it grows, manifesting as existential dread, chronic dissatisfaction, or that gnawing sense of, is this all there is? Modern psychology frames this as cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding two contradictory beliefs. Life should have meaning. Nothing I do seems to matter in the grand scheme. We resolve this tension in one of three ways: distraction. Endless scrolling, consumerism, addiction, delusion, blind faith in a predetermined purpose, despair, nihilism, resignation. But there is a fourth option, one that Nietzsche hinted at, that the Stoics practiced, and that Viktor Frankl discovered in the concentration camps, the deliberate creation of meaning in the face of the void, the philosophical roots of the crisis. Arthur Schopenhauer saw it clearly. Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. We suffer when we don't get what we want, and we suffer differently when we do. The modern world, with its infinite distractions, has only amplified this cycle. Jean-Paul Sartre took it further. Man is condemned to be free. We long for destiny, for a pre-written story, but the universe offers only blank pages. This freedom isn't liberating, it's paralyzing. And then there's Dostoevsky, who understood that without a higher purpose, humans will invent one, even if it's destructive. His underground man rages against the machine of rationality because he knows reason is nothing but reason and satisfies only the rational side of man's nature. The modern conditioning Aldous Huxley warned us. The greatest threat isn't a boot stamping on a human face. It's a society so saturated with pleasure and distraction that no one bothers to ask why they're living. You've been conditioned to believe busyness equals purpose. If you're productive, you won't have time to question. Certainty equals safety. If you follow the script, you won't have to face the abyss. Consumption equals fulfillment. If you keep wanting, you'll never have to confront the emptiness of having. But none of these actually work. They're painkillers, not cures. The turning point. Here's the truth no one tells you. The crisis of meaning isn't a flaw. It's a feature. It's not that life is pointless. It's that pointlessness is the point. The moment you stop demanding that the universe justify your existence is the moment you discover something far more powerful, the ability to choose your own meaning. But this isn't some shallow self-help mantra. This is the razor's edge between nihilism and liberation. And the way forward is not what you've been taught. The ghost in the machine. You walk through life like a sleepwalker, performing routines you no longer remember choosing. You laugh at the right moments, nod at expected intervals, and scroll through an endless feed of curated lives, each one screaming, "This is what meaning looks like." But beneath the surface, something is rotting. Not in a dramatic, apocalyptic sense, but in slow, imperceptible decay, like a tree dying from the inside, while its leaves still shine green. This is the unseen consequence of living in a world that denies the void, a life spent running from a truth that cannot be outrun. The three silent killers. 1. The illusion of progress. You've been sold the myth of linear growth, that life is an upward trajectory of achievement, happiness, and self-improvement. But the more you climb, the clearer it becomes. There is no summit. Every goal reached reveals another horizon. Every milestone crossed only resets the hunger. The modern world thrives on this infinite deferral of fulfillment, keeping you chasing a finish line that doesn't exist. 2. The tyranny of choice. The existentialists warned us, freedom is a burden. In a world of unlimited options, every decision becomes a referendum on your identity. Should I stay in this relationship or leave? Should I quit my job or grind harder? Should I meditate, travel, hustle, or heal? Paralyzed by possibility, you default to the safest script, the one that lets you blame circumstance rather than face the terrifying truth. You are the author, and every choice is yours alone. 3. The spiritual gaslighting. Everywhere you turn, you're told, you just need to find your passion. Everything happens for a reason. You create your own reality. These platitudes aren't just wrong, they're cruel. They pathologize your despair, framing the natural human confrontation with meaninglessness as a personal failure. The result? A silent shame, a voice whispering, if I can't make myself believe, maybe I'm the problem. The collective hypnosis. This isn't just your crisis. It's the defining sickness of our age. Look around. The rise of mass addiction, not just to substances, but to scrolling, shopping, self-optimization. The epidemic of burnout, not from overwork, but from work without why. The cult of productivity, where exhaustion is a status symbol and rest is guilt. These aren't individual failures. They're symptoms of a civilization built on a lie. That meaning can be manufactured, bought, or earned. The fork in the road. Most people never wake up. They spend their lives chasing temporary antidotes, success, love, enlightenment, resenting those who seem to have it figured out, numbing the question with distractions until it's too late to ask. But you're still here, still reading, still staring into the dark. That means something, not because the universe cares, but because you do. And that is the first crack in the prison. The first step is backwards. You've been told your whole life that the answer lies out there, in achievement, in love, in some future version of yourself, but the real exit is not forward, it's downward, into the dark, into the discomfort, into the very emptiness you've been running from. This is not surrender, this is war, the 3 acts of defiance. 1, the death of hope. Not hope as in things will get better, but hope as in something external will save me. Nietzsche's madman didn't mourn God's death. He mourned humanity's failure to recognize what it meant. We are now the creators. This is your first rebellion. Stop waiting for meaning to find you. Stop demanding life justify itself. Stop treating emptiness as error instead of canvas too. The sacred no society survives by your compliance. Every advertisement, every self-help guru, every cultural script whispers, this is what you should want. Your weapon? Refusal. Not the petulant no of a teenager, but the thunderous no of someone who has seen through the game. No to borrowed dreams, no to prefabricated identities, no to the tyranny of should. This is how Camus' Sisyphus becomes triumphant. Not by escaping his fate, but by owning it completely. 3. The dangerous yes. When all old meanings crumble, what remains is not nothingness, but possibility. This is where most falter. Faced with infinite freedom, they crawl back to familiar prisons. Your rebellion? To say yes. To temporary meanings that serve while they last. To the courage of creating without guarantee. To the absurd beauty of building sandcastles, knowing the tide will come. The alchemy of meaning. Viktor Frankl in Auschwitz discovered, those who survived weren't the strongest. They were those who could still find a why. Not a universal why, not an eternal why. A why in that moment. A memory to honor. A truth to speak. A moment of beauty to witness. This is the secret. Meaning isn't found, it's forged. In the fires of your attention, your choices, your stubborn I will, in the face of why bother? The daily revolutions. The morning question. Not what do I need to do, but what would make today worth living? Even if the answer is the way sunlight hits my coffee cup. The evening truth. Not what did I accomplish, but where did I feel most alive today? The midnight whisper. When the void speaks, don't argue, don't run. Say, I know you're there. And still, I choose this. The invitation. This is not a solution. This is not enlightenment. This is dirty, glorious rebellion. The kind fought not with weapons, but with waking eyes. The void remains. The absurd persists. But now you dance with them. The final illusion to shatter. You've been searching for an answer that would make it all make sense. Some grand revelation that would finally silence the question. Here it is. There is no answer. And that is the most liberating truth of all. The paradox. At the end of the path, all this time, you thought the goal was to find meaning. But the real transformation happens when you realize you don't need one. Not in the way you've been taught. Not as some external validation of your existence. The moment you stop demanding that life justify itself is the moment you become truly free. This is what the Zen masters meant by ordinary mind. What Nietzsche pointed to with amor fati. What Camus embodied when he wrote that the struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. The twofold revelation. Nothing matters, not your failures. Not your achievements, not your most cherished beliefs. In 1,000 years, all of this will be dust. Everything matters. Precisely because nothing has inherent meaning, everything becomes sacred. The taste of your morning coffee, the way sunlight filters through leaves, the quiet moments of connection that leave no trace. This is the great contradiction at the heart of existence. The universe is indifferent, and yet your experience of it is the most real thing there is. The art of dancing on the void. You expected enlightenment. What you get is something far more interesting. The permission to be human, to create meaning like sandcastles, knowing they'll wash away, to love deeply, while understanding all love ends in loss, to strive passionately without needing the universe to applaud. This isn't resignation, it's the most radical form of aliveness. The final question, not what is the meaning of life, but now that I know there isn't one, what will I do with my brief, impossible moment in the light? The answer isn't in these words. It's in what you do when you finish reading, and whether you'll live as someone who knows. Epilogue, the last truth. The void was never your enemy. It was the canvas all along. Now, go paint.